I get a lot of people asking me how we were blessed to walk away from corporate America in our early 30s. Well, listen, I don't want to keep that a secret. I want to share it with the world. And so maybe you're listening to this podcast and you're trying to figure out, how do I even get started on my journey of entrepreneurship and getting to a level of freedom? Well, text the word freedom to 737 777 9909. Enter your information in, and we look forward to sharing some information with you. A proven system with small overhead, right? That you can do part-time, spare time, right from the comfort of your home, and have amazing mentors, coaches, and a community of entrepreneurs who are willing to support you and help you on your journey to freedom. Welcome to Code Freedom. I'm your host, Eddie Bales. Have you ever felt stuck? Have you ever felt like there's got to be more than life than the reality that you see every day? Tune in weekly, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays as we crack the codes to freedom in every area of your life. Welcome to Code Freedom. I'm your host, Eddie Bales, and this is episode 59. And today we're going to have another segment of Freedom Talks. And it's been a little while since we did an episode of Freedom Talks. What is Freedom Talks? Freedom Talks is where I just I don't want to say ramble, but we just have conversation, I guess with myself, conversation with you. Well, it can't be a conversation because you're not talking back at me, but I'm just having a discussion with you all, so to speak, of just different things that are happening in the community, in the marketplace, in the world, whatever, or just things that are on my heart, right? And so, a couple of things I just want to cover with you guys that I thought was really profound. And the first thing is, this is the statement I just want to make: financial education makes investments less riskier. I'll say that again. Financial education makes investments less riskier. Here's the deal. When you know what you know and you understand the ins and outs of an investment, the ups and downs, and what's possible and what's on the good side or the bad side, and you know what you really know your stuff, then it makes investing uh less riskier, right? I mean, the financial education is so important because um the more you understand and the more you know, the more knowledge you have in a certain area. Like, for instance, I'll just say, uh I'll just use myself as an example. So I love investing in stocks, right? um so I have a pretty decent portfolio, but I'm always educating myself, and so I'm looking at jumping into a level of stocks that I haven't done before, which is called options, right? And you got to know what you're doing if you're going to do something like that. It's a little bit more involved than just buying a stock and holding it and just waiting when it goes up and when it goes down, just holding it for the long term. That's fairly easy, right? And I've done pretty good at picking stocks, right? But options, it's a little bit more of a short term play, right? And some people would say, "Oh, well, that's risky. You shouldn't probably do that," and things like that. But again, back to what I said, financial education makes investments less riskier. Once you understand the ins and outs of things, and that's what I'm studying and making sure I'm educating myself, and also surrounding myself with people who are already great at that. Those types of things. When you're doing that, then you have don't I'm not going to say you won't lose, because you always have losses, right? But the goal is to have more wins than you have losses in life. But just understand, you can have less losses once you have a higher level of awareness and a higher level of financial education. So I just wanted to share that for those of you who are like, okay, I want to invest in something, I want to do some investments, but I don't know. Don't fall into that place where you're just like analysis paralysis. And here, this leads me to my next point that a millionaire business partner of mine said, and I thought it was so profound that it really resonated with me and it stuck with me. He says, "Don't be too prideful or too embarrassed to ask when you don't know." Right? Like for instance, sometimes we want to ask questions about things, but we're too proud to ask questions because we don't want to look bad. We don't want to feel embarrassed. Listen, um, I'll ask a gazillion questions to make sure that I understand something because I'm all about understanding. We've talked about that in this podcast. We talked about knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. And the only way I can apply knowledge is if I understand it, right? And that is the beginning of wisdom. So we must study and show ourselves approved. We must understand. We must seek out the information, seek out the people who have the information, right? So don't be ashamed if somebody knows something and you don't want to ask the question, right? Ask the questions. So I just want to say that because that's kind of where I'm at right now. Is I'm asking the questions. There's no shame in my game because I want to learn, right? Like I'll admit, hey, I know this, but I don't know that. I understand this, but I don't have any experience with that, right? And so I'm just excited because it's all about changing the game and raising your awareness, changing levels, right? And the only way you can really change levels is when you change your level of thinking, when you start seeking out information. So here's the deal: if you were going to succeed on the level you are right now, you'd already be doing it. And don't get me, when I say succeed, I don't mean like you're not succeeding. What I'm saying is if you want to succeed at a higher level than you are right now, then you have to get more information on that higher level that's going to make up the gap for where you are right now. You see what I'm saying? And so like even for myself, um, I had to get information about the business that I decided to join almost 19 years ago, and I had to once I got in that business, I had to learn that business and understand it, and it's done me well. But I had to get more information than I had prior to, right, in order to succeed at a higher level. And then even in that business, to go to higher levels, there's new information that I continue to have to seek out, right, to continue to climb different levels in my business. So again, don't be ashamed to ask questions because if you need to know, somebody knows and you don't know, so it just makes sense to ask, right? And put the pride aside if that's a thing for you, right? So check this out. Jay Z and Beyonce have bought the world's most expensive car. Check this out. It's a Rolls Royce boat tail. It's a Rolls Royce boat tail, and this car is 28.4 million. Right, $28.4 million. Now I know what some of you guys are thinking. You're like, that's just too much, right? Or they tripping, right? You probably like, why in the world would somebody do that? But let me put things in perspective for you, because I did a little research, because people say things like that all the time, but you got to understand the levels of things. So 28.4 million. I checked their net worth, and their net worth, according to the internet, is 1.5 billion. If you were to look at the percentages of their wealth versus what they spent on this car, um, which by the way is one could argue, most of the time you wouldn't say a car is an asset, but one could argue that this car is an asset because they could always sell it and make money from this car, right? Um, you talk about a car depreciating as soon as it hits the lot. I don't know that this car is going to depreciate. It may even increase just because of the fact that Jay Z and Beyonce have owned it, right? Think about that. So just think from that perspective, but also think from this perspective. If my numbers are right, that is literally less than 0.018% of their wealth. It's not even a 1% of their wealth, guys. Think about that. $1.5 billion in net worth, and that's not even 1% of their wealth. And so it reminds me of one of my other business partners. He said that he started a Lambo account. You know, for those of you who don't know what that means, that's a Lamborghini account. And but what he said was so intriguing and interesting. I loved it, and I want to share it with you guys. He said, but he's funding it from investments. So basically, he bought investments, or he has investments, and those investments have produced cash flow, and that cash flow he's using to fund the Lambo account. So I learned this a long time ago, and it changed my life when I read Rich Dad Poor Dad. And Rich Dad Poor Dad, it said, now this is how it says it. I like to say it a different way. It says, uh, wealthy people, wealthy people, um, no, let's just start with what it says. It says poor people, they they get their income, and then pay all their bills, and they typically don't have anything left over. And then it said wealthy people, they get their income, and then they buy assets that pay their bills, and then they do whatever with what's left over. So it's a different way of thinking, because one is one buys an asset that's going to produce more, while the other just spends it on bills, and never really has a way to produce more other than just waiting for that next check to come in. Different perspective. You get what I'm saying? So this is why I love having this type of podcast and sharing this type of information with you, because these are perspectives that we need to start learning and having and understanding. So that I'm always looking for assets. I'm always looking for investments. I'm always looking for um, things that can produce more cash flow, that can fund other things. I've heard of people who bought a house and rented it out and let that income pay for certain things that they wanted to do, right? So I mean, we could have a whole episode on that. We probably will, right? As I'm talking, but but I'm just saying, all this stuff that I'm talking about, it kind of flows together. Even though it may seem like I'm all over the place, it flows, because it goes back to what I said in the beginning, is financial education, right? And so these are just all things that I've been studying over the last several years, and I still, the more I know, the more I realize that I don't know anything, right? Especially with even these investments that I just talked about with the options. Um, you know, I know people who've been doing it for a long time and made incredible success with it, right? And me, I've learned about it, I've known about it for a long time, but I've never pulled the trigger on it. And this is a year for me. I got to tell you, this is a year for me. I'm pulling the trigger on all things, right? There's a lot of things that, even this podcast, that I started it, it's been in my mind to do for a long time. And I said, look, it's time to go, right? And there's a lot of other things that I still need to get to this year, that it's just a go. It's a go. It's like it's a drawing of a line in the sand and saying, hey, this is the year that it has to get done. And so I hope you make some of those decisions this year as well. Let's get to 2022 and say this was the best year that we ever had, even in the midst of a pandemic and all the craziness that happens in the world. We get to decide what's going to happen for our lives, right? So, anyway, I hope you enjoyed this episode. I kind of want to talk some more, because I'm just excited. There's a lot of things I could share, but this is we'll keep it to an end for right now. But this is another episode of Freedom Talks on Code Freedom. Hope you enjoyed it, and I can't wait to hear you guys on the next episode. Take care, God bless, and we'll see you all over the top. Thanks for tuning in. Appreciate you guys for listening. Definitely feel free to take a screenshot of this episode, tag me in it on Instagram or Facebook, or wherever you find me on social media. I would love to give you a shout out. Hey, you might even get a prize. Who knows? But excited that you had a chance to take a listen. I hope you got a lot of value. And definitely feel free to give us 5 stars as well as a review. Show us some love, and we appreciate you. God bless you all, and see you all over the top.